What it be, what it be, what it be. I'm here to change perspective. Yeah, so another episode of me changing your perspective or trying to. Um, and I know last month was supposed to be privacy, but I just have one more I want to do about privacy because I can't just talk about it without showing you how to capture it. Because privacy, it really is like a Pokemon. You know, when you play Pokemon, you got to catch them all. Privacy is the same way. You got to catch them all. Now, when I say the words catch privacy, I mean learning how to vet on your own and learning how to create a more um, private, you know, ecosystem for you to work in, whether it's online or offline. And in this case, we're going to be talking about the online, the browser, how to actually take your operating system to the next level and have a way to capture what is going on, like with your browser extensions and other things. So you can actually do this same process to vet most applications. Um, and even entire operating systems to see if you're going to like it or not. So the first thing I want to talk about is going to be BitTorrent. Let's see if we can get that pulled up. Nick, can you pull that up for me, Brosive? Thank you, sir. So here we go. As you can see right now, we're looking at my entire browser window. And inside of it, I basically have BitTorrent up. And BitTorrent is like one of the elder ways to get torrents. There are other ones like FrostWire, I think still runs. LimeWire is one people remember, but BitTorrent is most widely used nowadays. There's also different ways to get more uh, tubes of action, which allows you to upload, download faster or more because you can have more stream basically in the system. But this is going to be something you're going to get really used to. So basically, what we're just going to click here to download it. You know, of course, I'm on a PC, so it says PC. If you're going to be doing Linux, you're just going to download it for Linux. And the great thing about BitTorrent is it's on mobile. It's on almost all operating systems. You just got to search for it and just put in BitTorrent, download free, and then your operating system in the search bar. I kind of want to show you what that looks like. I never talked about it, although you're gonna have to look up for a second because I'm going to be up here. When you're searching for this, when you do these searches, you're going to um, put it what it is, what you want to do, cost price, and then um, operating system, and then you search, and it's going to search that exact stuff in that order. And with you doing it set up like that, what you're looking for, what action you need to do, what price you're willing to pay, and what operating system you're on is going to help you basically find everything we're going to talk about. Because I know last time I didn't really explain how to look for it. This time I want to make sure you know exactly how to look for it. But maybe next time I'll have a QR code to put up here so that way you guys can see it all the time. I was going to get it set up, but I just completely forgot because this doing this what we're going to be talking about basically running a virtual machine on your device. It does take some time effort, and I wanted to go through different options to figure out what might be best for most people with a Linux system that they're going to be able to use, enjoy, and understand. So BitTorrent, this is what we're going to use just because we can download it in multitude of different ways. I can download it on my phone, and what I need, download it on my phone. I can transfer it to my computer, like all sorts of different ways. So that's why we really want to use BitTorrent. Now, getting to an operating system that I think most people are going to be able to use, especially for the vetting process, is going to be a Linux Mint. Here I'm on the page, Linux Mint. It's actually linuxmint.com/edition.php. Really simple, and they have more than one version, but I'm sticking with Cinnamon just because for what you're getting in the size, it's a good combination. It's not too big, it's not too heavy, but it does have a lot of main options most Windows users will want and be used to. It's actually set designed to look like Windows. Um, and as you can see here, it is 2.4 gigabytes. I mean, literally to download it, I'm just going to click on where it says 64-bit because I have a 64-bit machine. If I didn't have a 64-bit machine, it would be the regular bit, which you see it downloads a torrent file. And then I open up that torrent file. It then automatically opens up BitTorrent, which then automatically then downloads this torrent for me. It automatically puts into the download section and starts downloading. And that's it. That's really easy. I don't want to pull up BitTorrent because then it will cause a bunch of lagging issues. So you're going to have to do that on your own. But just so you know, Linux Mint 21 Cinnamon is what I'm actually using specifically. Any of the Linux Mints, though, you're going to do fine with. And that's the great thing about Linux Mint. It's really stable, really good, and with features most Windows users already used to. So when you're, basically when you download what you're getting for this, it's an ISO file. And when you are ready, because now we just got to get the VMware, right? Which there's tons of different ones you can use to pull up, to look for, and whatnot. So in this case, we're going to go, just to show you what I'm talking about, virtual machine, free Windows 10. And you can see I've actually searched that. So, I forgot the action, which I want to download. And you see here we go, Windows virtual machine. We're getting a bunch of stuff. And that's kind of the problem, is like when you're looking for a virtual machine, if you don't have one you prefer, you need to know where to start. So I start with VMware, which if we just remove this and put in capital V, capital M, WARE, VMware, download free Windows 10. It takes, you see the website, VMware. It doesn't say that this is an ad of any kind. Workstation player, that's the exact place we want to go. And it's basically all those words is the link, vmware.com/workstation-player. Boom, boom, we're there. And this is basically Workstation is the free version. Basically, you can get the extended version for if you're a corporation and you're needing to do this as a corporation. But if you're just a regular person, regular Joe like me, most likely you, then boom, you're just going to get the free one. I think the only one this doesn't work for is Mac, but Mac has Parallels, which can actually run your Windows on it. And I used the beta test for them. They're really fun. So if you're on a Mac, try Parallels to get, I think you can get Linux running on Parallels as well. But anyways, that is where I would go for Mac. Parallels is one of the better ones. Now, I do have this. I want to show you, so you should be able to see my little bar. See, this is what it looks like, and it just installs like anything else for your operating system. This should pop up right in front of me. Yeah. And basically, once you have the ISO, you have the VM where installed, you open it up. It's going to come up like this. It might have something already installed. It might not. I think one of the times I did it, it actually had like a buffer. It was just an example. It wasn't an actual finalized ISO or operating system. So this is going to be your main tool. This is going to allow you to run your operating system on its own little container. This is one of the first steps to, capturing for your privacy is, well, you need to containerize things so you can then monitor what happens inside of it. So we're going to go through this VM starting process. It's really not that bad. It's actually probably the easiest thing you've ever done comparing to other things that you were going to be using. This is super simple. So I'm going to create a new virtual machine, as it says right here. I'm just going to click that, and it's going to bring up a little pop-up, and it's going to say, where is it at? Now, if you have an operating system on a hard disk, bro, go for it. Use it. Otherwise, you're going to use the installer disk image or ISO. Then you got to hit browse and look for that. And as we look, right here, Linux Mint Cinnamon 64-bit. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on that, open. And you see here it says, could not detect which operating system is in this disk image. Well, that's actually not a half bad thing. I know that seems like, hey, that's not good, bro. But Linux Mint is supposed to be a little bit more private. Like Tails, I think, does this too. Tails is the most private Linux system out there. So that actually showcases the property value of what they have to offer. And if you get a Linux Mint version and it says we could detect it, then it's actually probably just an older Linux Mint before they started getting more on the privacy side. Or you can actually just say, let's start this process, I'll install the operating system later. That's for really advanced users. So if you can install an operating system fresh onto a blank, well, we call it blank metal, or it's just the computer system. If you can install it fresh on one of those, then you can install it fresh on one of these in the same way, which is not bare metal or fresh metal. This would be soft metal, which just means it's software on the metal. And then on the metal being your computer. And then here, the next step, because it doesn't know where it's at, basically it's got some predetermined guess. And actually, this guess ain't half bad. Linux, Ubuntu, both good. And you see there are generic Linux kernels, and that's more for a completely different type. And they don't go up to more of the newer standards. So Ubuntu, though, does. And it's going to be probably whatever guesses here is probably going to actually work with it. And the only other time you might want to change it, if you're on a Mac, you hit Other. If you're on Windows, you hit Windows. Because if you look in here, there's nothing in here that says Mac. I don't think it has Mac in here. It does got old Javas though. Yeah. It's just basic Linuxes. And then here we can actually change the name. This is good, so that way you know what it's for or what it might be used for. It's like, for example, we're going to call this browser vetting. And then that's going to change where it saves that. So all the files containing with that virtual machine will be saved into those files. So I'm going to hit next. And it's going to say, hey, you're going to need to give this thing some space, bro. So you can see here, it's going to need hard drive space. It's going to need RAM. Now it says split virtual disk into multiple files. I always recommend this unless you're trying to like have a small, super secure like Tails or something that you don't want into a folder. That means that you're not going to be putting much on there. It's going to be like less than 10 gigabytes. That's when you want to do like as a single file, because that actually will be secure. But in this case, it's for a vetting process. We don't want it to be secure. We want to be able to look through it as if it's a real computer, just like if I was on a computer, without having to run the virtual machine. So split it into multiple files, super handy. So we hit next, and you see it recommended 20 gigabytes. I think that's pretty good. I ain't going to play with that. Hit next. So here we go. Here's some data. We can hit customize hardware. I always recommend you at least click this button and at least turn on show all USB inputs. I just think that's really important. Most people, when they're doing stuff with a remote virtual machine, they're eventually going to try to plug in a USB and ain't going to be able to find it until you told the VMware to look for it. Which you can do this part at any time, like after as long as it's not running. So memory, 2 gigabytes. I'm actually going to give it 4. I always recommend giving it just a little bit more. Processes, I always give it just a little bit more. All this extra stuff, it's mostly going to be for like Windows users or people that are running like you see here, AMD graphics cards and stuff like that. And then your network adapter. You never really want to use a bridge connection to the physical network. That means basically in your network stream, you're going to have, your Wi-Fi, your Ethernet, your blah, 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 blah. It's going to have this as its own thing. And the virtual machine will automatically do that for you. But still, it will be a wall between the actual network and the operating system, meaning A, we can cut off its network anytime without having to shut down the internet to our actual device. We can have more control over the networking there, and we basically have an internal IP address that then is broadcasted by a different IP address, allowing us to have IP layering. Basically, I always recommend using that or doing a host-only private network if you never really want this to actually be online. And then, yeah, we already did USB. Sound card, unless you have like special sound cards and stuff, you probably won't need to worry about this. You see here, I can actually specify my Bluetooth, my Bluetooth headphones. We can do enable echo cancellation, but that's if you're going to be doing like streaming or anything with mic use over this virtual machine. And then display. This, I don't normally mess with it except for if I plan on playing games on here, I'll hit accelerate 3D graphics. But other words, I just use the host options, which means it's just going to use the same options that I have on the host device. Close that out, and it's already got everything saved in. You see, we see it all out here. And we can just go ahead and hit finish. Let this bad boy do its thing. Which you can see, that was quick, that was fast, and that's how it's supposed to be. Now, one of the great things about most Linuxes is you can play with a Linux without installing a Linux. So depending on how much more you want to do with this, depends on if you actually need to install it. So let's just go ahead and hit play. Let this thing run up. And just basically tell me I have the wrong architecture. And it went to Debian. So it tried to install Debian, even though, oops, when I hit Linux Mint. And you see when we hit edit, it does not let us change that. So when you do have this issues, which this is like the third time I've actually had this exact issue where I clicked on an ISO and automatically switched to another one. When that happens, all you have to do is right click and delete from disk and then do it again. And normally the next time you do it, it will actually pull in the right one. I already have one set up, so I'm just going to jump into it. And you see right here, OS, it says Ubuntu, it is powered off, it is a workstation for all the same specs and stuff. It's just a different one. Now we got this little pop-up. This is from the VM workstation. I always keep these up because sometimes they give really good, data. So that's why I don't ever close the hint message. I like the tip thing. Now you see we have basically two layers going on right now. We have inside the workstation and outside the workstation. So as it says, to detect this machine, press Control G, or I can just click on the screen. And now that I'm in it, so my mouse disappeared, it says to get out of it, press Control and Alt at the same time. Now all you have to do is just hold Control, then click Alt, and it will knock you out, for example. Now you can see my mouse again. I'm going to click on it again. Now I'm back inside that virtual machine, which means if I use my keyboard keys, is actually using the virtual machine. This is super important to understand because, yeah, I can drag my mouse out of it. I can't drag my mouse back into it. And sometimes you might be trying to do an action on the virtual machine, but you're actually set to your physical machine. So you need to be paying attention to those things. Just because it can get confusing, or you might think you lost your mouse and oh nope, you're using the virtual machine. So remember, Control Alt gets you out in an ease. So if you're not sure, Control Alt and you're safe. I'm going to go back into it. We're going to start Linux Mint Cinnamon Regular compatibility mode. Sometimes you might have an issue or something and you'll drop into compatibility mode just to try to be able to figure out what went wrong. So that's like safe mode for Windows, is what it's called on Windows. And then if you're a manufacturer, you can actually install OEMs out of here, or we can just test memory. But anyways, I'm going to go directly into it. I'm going with this magic captain. So when using a virtual machine, it's important to remember that, they all work. All of these virtual machines kind of work slightly different, even though in general they do the same actions. Errors do happen, complications do happen, just like on most machines. You get blue screen of death on Windows, you get other problems on Linux, and so don't let that scare you. Just remember that's a part of the process. And so out of the different distros for Linuxes, there are, if you want one that specifically looks like a Macintosh, they have that, or even the classic Mac or the classic Windows, they have that. If you're wanting one that, it's designed for gaming or designed for, penetration testing, or basically, hacking for good, hacking for businesses and stuff, they have that. So tons of different options for you to go through. Again, I like Linux Mint just because it's a real base one. It does a lot of stuff on it, and it's kind of good. Now we see we got a pop-up down here about VMware tools. I'm going to say remind me later, this operating system, the VMware tools do not work. We got connection established. So if you want to know if your operating system you picked can use those VMware tools, you basically just click install it, and then it will let you know if it's installed or not. If you get an error, it gives you a link to go to a site to actually find out which systems it does run on, and then you can know. So as you can see, I can install this, and as it's installing, I can keep using it, or I don't even have to actually install it, and I can still keep using it. So basically, we can view the network. I got settings. So we got a network, we got a proxy, and you can see this kind of looks like Windows. I can actually make this bigger, and then I can go and adjust the screen size on the inside of the operating system to make it actually fit. You can make it smaller. We have toolbar pop-up. We have all the same stuff that you would be expecting if you're from Windows. Now, some of the things you have in here, when you go to administration, you're going to see stuff that you're used to seeing: disk management and driver managers and software managers. But you're going to become really familiar with terminal. So what we're going to be doing is to look at what's going on in here. So when I'm on like the browser and I'm looking for stuff, or I'm doing something, I will be able to actually see what's happening in the background of this virtual machine. So like right now, we don't see anything actually happening. It's just doing stuff, right? So we want to be able to see it. So basically, we're going to be using, basically a network mapper, or it's also SNMP, which is Simple Network Management Protocol. And what that is the actual protocol that allows us to monitor the stuff that's going on. And it's an entire protocol for just that, right? So that way it comes down to anybody can build anything for it to work with it. And it kind of goes back to the virtual machine. There's tons of different like network mappers and things like that you might want to use or not use. So today I'm only going to show you ones and tools that are completely free. So you don't have to be like under 30-day free trial or anything like that. And they're just going to allow you to do the basics of the vetting process. If you want to be able to do more advanced vetting, you might need to pay for an actual tool, or you might have to go through the trouble. Like a lot of people like me, what I do is I'll use a tool for 30 days, lose that free trial, and then use a different one for 30 days, and then just kind of go through about 5 or 6. I can re-loop back to the first one I use and do it again. So it just talks about what's on here. Now, if you ever have a chance to look this up, it is an introduction to SNMP. Sometimes just looking up SNMP can help you find this right here. And this is on the DigitalOcean knowledge base. So I'm just going to show you, here is 14 land monitoring tools for this year alone. Like these come out like every year, every 6 months or so, these websites come out. So there's a billion different ones. And all the ones on here are really, really, really good. SolarWinds, probably one of the better ones. Management Engine, super good. Passier, and like this is one I don't use a whole lot, but it has a lot of good uses for it. SolarWinds, again, of course, network performance. So they have different versions of the same tools. One that does one specific thing, some that do more than one specific thing. It's 24/7. Yeah, it's all right. But if you notice something about a lot of these cloud-based, what they do is they are using a cloud. So all of your data goes to that cloud, and then they can actually view information coming in and out of that. And then that's how they help you out. So a lot of people are not going to really want to do that nowadays. Like a lot of these are actually older. But down here, this one right here, Zabbix. I wanted to point this out to you guys because this is one that uses SNMP, and it's generically basic, but it's also open source. So you can vet it any way possible. And now, which one of these are we actually going to be using? I'm not going to actually use any of the ones on this list. I just wanted to show you that there are tons of different ones, and the fact that Zabbix is one that is pretty good to use. We're going to be using more like HTOP, ZenMap, stuff that we can install pretty easily already, 100% free. And some of these tools are on the screen are actually going to be using what we're using, what I'm about to be showing you, to actually do what they do. So, I mean, like, this part can be difficult. And although, you know, I only want to show you these free options available right now, keep in mind the ones behind the paywalls can sometimes be more advanced, and they may be required, you may need more advanced knowledge to use them. So these ones right here, super simple, super basic, super easy to use, and that is important here because you don't want to get too frustrated, right? You want to be able to just go in and go out and do things. So Nmap or network map is the first one on the list. So again, if we go back to our searcher, and I'm just going to replace VMware with literally NMAP, Nmap. And then by doing that, we're going to get tons of stuff. But if we go, see how this says report ad, I'm going to go below the ad. First one, nmap.org. That's exactly where we want to go. We want to go to nmap.org. See, I'm on the ZenMap GUI. Basically, this is the front website. It's just, I've already clicked on something. And the reason why, like, everyone uses Nmap, it's one of the, like, industry standards, basically. But ZenMap, I think a lot of people are going to enjoy using that over just using the terminal. So, for example, to get Nmap installed, there's a download thing. I'm going to click on it. There we go. So here it is for Windows. Doing it on Linux, it's super easy. It's just a matter of, like, are you on x64 or you know, like, you might need to know more about your operating system. But most Linuxes, you're just, like, basically saying apt get nmap install, boom, you'll get it. And you see they tell you which ones are their most stable releases, really handy. And they even have it on Mac, which is super handy. So here's the Windows specific data, of course. There's that right there. Now, I've already got Nmap on my device. You can also get it on your virtual machine if you want. I do see, like, there is that way where it could be handy to have that. And Nmap Zen. So on the Windows, it automatically says Zen GUI, super handy. And this is what it looks like. It's not that complicated. It's not that bad. We just need a target, and we can do it. We can initiate a scan. So just to show what's going on, yeah, looking at my screens. There we go. So I'm just going to cascade these up a little bit, so I can use them both at the same time. So close up that. We're just going to go back into network settings. And there is my IP address for this virtual machine, right? 192. And I've already used it before. That is true. I have. And then basically I can initiate a scan. And this is going to take some time. It might throw some errors and stuff, but it will still go through a list of scans. And then it'll tell you, hey, okay, finished it. This is what we found. And I know this doesn't seem like a whole lot, but basically if you can do this when nothing is running, before you installed anything, basically have a base. You have a base ideal of what's going on. You can see here, It sent over 1,000 packets. It received almost all of them back. That's good. It does see that this is up to 16 seconds, so it's close. But the most important part here is that it does logs. Basically, you have all these logs. You can save these logs, and it even tells you where stuff is being sent to, and then we can like see. Okay, there it is. There's us. There's it. So we can actually view bits more of information. We can kind of see what's going on, what scans were actually performed. We can actually append more scans, and so there's tons more stuff that can be done. We can get more advanced if we want, or we can just basically say simple. You see this is an unsaved map, and I forgot how to save it. Yeah, save scan, and save all scans to directory. So you have a bunch of scans up, you can save them all. And host eye, fish eye, here's your controls. I mean, like, it gives you tons of options of what you can actually can do. And that's going to be really important. So it's going to be one of the tools that you're going to be using to vet stuff, because we're not just going to use one tool and get all the data. It'd be kind of, as odd as it is, stupid. So one of the things that we're going to need is we're going to need data directly from the virtual machine, so we can compare what the virtual machine is saying is going on and what is actually going on. So basically, what is the operating system inside the virtual machine saying, and what are we able to view from outside of that environment? If they come up both the same, then most likely everything's good. But if the operating system inside the virtual machine is going, hey, there's only 12 things going on, and there's only this 5 gigabytes of data being used, or or RAM or whatever. But then when we look on the outside and say, oh no, we can see that that's actually running more processes. It's actually using more gigabytes. Then we can just say, okay, something's going on in the background we can't see, and now we can start trying to find out where that's from. So using these two together is going to be the whole way to make things work. It's gonna be your magic sauce. It's how you actually are doing your how you're verifying what is it saying. Is it that or not? Are we getting more? Are we getting less? So apt get htop install. I think that's it. No, did I misspell it? Oh, apt htop. There we go. I was doing it the Debian way. So apt install htop, and it's trying to find out where it is, where it's at. Boom, installing it. So it fetched it. Now it's double checking. Now it's actually doing its process, and now it's done. That didn't take very long, did it? So then I just type in htop, and now I basically have a task manager, a really advanced task manager in the operating system. And we do have options that we can do here. We can look at things, and because we are root user, there's a lot more we can do than what you can on your Windows task manager. And so we can see what exactly is happening. So basically, if we run this scan and we're getting a lot of lost packets, for example, we're not receiving nearly as much, then we can say, okay, something is happening to take up a lot of traffic, could be causing confusion, blah, blah, blah. If we go into topology and there's another node between us and this, then unless we're on a VPN or something like that, then we can go, okay, something's wrong. Now imagine if we're using the browser on a VPN and there should be bouncing in here, right? So everything that you're doing could happen, because let's say you're testing the VPN extension or whatever, and you're not getting hopping, you're just going directly to it, and it might not be a real good VPN. What if we put in a VPN and out of nowhere in our processes tree that we're seeing here on htop, what if like we get five or six processes that pop up like crazy or randomly or under a different, username or the CPU usage or, however you want to look at it, right? And then that can help you to find where your problem actually is or if something is working in the way it should be. But still not quite done because HTOP, hey, I forgot, HTOP has a website, doesn't it? So HTOP has their own website. It really is HTOP or HTOP.dev. And it kind of gives you more information, teaches you how to use it and stuff like that. And also has a download thing, depending on wherever you're at, however you want to do it, it can help you through it. Although you just saw me install it in like seconds. So this with NetMapper and our actual hold on, the screen's gonna freak out for a second. All our actual task manager, what we basically can see is we can see now how much Wi-Fi is being used or Ethernet or GPU. If we say we install like a program into the virtual machine that we're wanting to vet, right? We're like, hey, we want to vet HTOP. And we have this running before HTOP. We do a scan before HTOP. Well, then we can also come in here and we can, okay, well, you know what? Let's just do another intense scan. Let's just do another scan. And we can see now what's happening after HTOP. Another thing I like is it tells you when things fell and what failed, why. We received one less packet, but it sent out more packets. So technically, we actually received a higher percentage or a slightly higher percentage than what we sent out originally the first time. It took almost the exact same amount of speed. So, I mean, a lot of it's going real good. Okay, we're still on only the 2 ports. I mean, like, no extra ports being opened. All right. So, as we see here, not much changed, even though we're now running HTOP. And that's good, right? So, say now I'm like, okay, bro, let's go to the interwebs. Interwebs, please. So we can see that the internet usage jumped quite a bit. See? It jumped quite a bit. Let's do another intense scan. Look at Firefox. So as we can see, Firefox is taking up quite a bit. We sent out less packets than the one just previously, and we received less packets, or about what was that same amount of packets? Yeah, same amount of packets as last time, but less packets were sent out this time. So we were actually having a packet loss. We're having about the same amount as we were at base. So this tells us, okay, Firefox takes up a lot more memory than we want to admit, and it's only being allowed little channels of 9.5, and we can see, okay, what is it doing? And it's like, okay, this is not a hardened version of Firefox. Might want to harden that. And then after we harden it, so this allows us to go through the actual base processes of like doing all of your vetting. And I know it sounds strange, and for the most part, a lot of people who are just get used to vetting everything, they're just spend some time playing. And they might be like, okay, I need to try this, I need to try this, I need to try this. So put a list of like 4 or 5 different things I need to try. And then when they have a free day or whatever, they'll jump on, they'll go through the list of stuff they need to test, they'll do them one at a time, they'll go through all these different steps, and they might even have like a packet catcher or some other various tools and apps you can use to do the exact same thing. There's even ones on your phone, like I have one on my phone where I could actually start sniffing the packets out of here. It would just inject itself and I could start sniffing the packets. But then in my topology, there'd be an extra node up in here. We can also do port scans. We can scan different things. We can see just how long it took to ping it. But for the most part, most of you are going to just do an intent scan and get most of that data anyways. And then, so what we are really just basically seeing is me capturing small amounts of data to determine what is actually going on. Using different tools can allow you to see more and capture more for your privacy. You can even get tools, I think there are some that exist online that will allow you to read your fingerprint and see what data they're catching on you. And then you can, inside this type of setup, test your hardening to see if you can eventually get it set up to where your hardening file for your operating system or your browser in this case is more like everybody else and less unique, and blend in with those numbers and all these different things. So like capturing the data, it isn't the same as analyzing the data. Analyzing the data is completely different, and taking one step moves you to the next step, and eventually finding of like what, when, where, and how of the data. So what is either accessing, using, obtaining data? When did this happen? Where is it at? Like, is it a certain part in my operating system? Is it coming from another server? And how does it communicate in and out to make this happen? So a lot of times, like, say you were trying to like see the data from something, like, okay, I want to see the data coming from Firefox browser, see what is actually happening. I would have to start sniffing packets. I want to just see how it's doing stuff. Well, I can do that here on HTOP. I can do that with basic task management. And when is it happening? Well, that's when it's like trial and error, repeat, do different things like that. And so that's capturing the data. So then analyzing the data is just basically taking that data and trying to figure out, like, what is it being pushed for, or what, when, why type thing. It's like just breaking it down a little bit more to more why. But it is going to require you to do things 3 to 4 times. So the process to vetting, it really is containerize. That's what we're doing in the VM. Watch what's actually happening, like we're doing with HTOP and map and the general task manager, packet sniffers, and then cause something, open up the browser, close the browser, right? And then analyze what you caught, which we've already analyzed a little bit of what we caught, which was basically, dang, Firefox uses as many dang RAM slots as it can. And then try to do that again. Try to cause the same action again. So if I can get this to happen again, show me the interwebs. Yep, doing it again. Yep, got a spike. And then we do all this again, right? And if we're having similar result to the first one, then we know for sure, that's definitely what caused this, whatever, the spike, this thing, this drop in packet. I actually have more drops in packets this time. No, less drops in packets this time. My bad, less drops. but we can see it is still using up quite a bit. It's actually using up less memory this time. But the amount of Wi-Fi spike still was about the same, and the megabits per second actually about the same as well. So now we can start testing and trying and doing all within a safe environment. And I always say 3 times, because doing something twice isn't always going to work. Third time, if you have similar results from the first 2, you need to do something completely different. Like maybe install a completely different browser that's same base browser, and then try up that browser and see if we get similar results. If you have 2 completely different results from the first 2, they're completely different, then try the exact same thing in a completely different way. For example, we're just opening a web browser and searching, right? Well, there is a way to do the same thing without the web browser inside the terminal. So then maybe next time I open up another terminal window, I get tmux, which I think it's apt install tmux, and then I search that same search through tmux, and I make sure it works. So tmux is installing right now. And all tmux is a browser in the terminal shell. And then we can see, oh, does it use up similar memory? Does it have similar spike? Does it have similar packet loss? And then we can kind of break down what's actually going on. And in this case, this is for your privacy, right? So this is just vetting. We always talk about you got to vet the stuff. That's how you verify. This is the process to go through it. It's a little irritating, but it is 100% worth it, because like it may be difficult and mundane and boring, but because we are using this containerized operating system, we can just do our normal routine through this virtual system, this VM system, and then we can go back and use logs if we need to look for something later. So remember I said important thing about Nmap, HTOP, the Linux is they all create logs. So if something happens, we can actually just go back into the logs and use Control F to actually find specific words or text or bits of data to help us really analyze it faster. But when you're doing vetting, you want more live. When you're just finding errors in your daily routine, you do it through logs. So, after you're getting used to having some of these like up and running in the back end more often, like you'll actually consider that more for how you might buy your next computer or what needs you have in a computer. Even there's a lot of people out here that are like, oh, well, I don't know what kind of phone to get, I don't know what kind of computer to get, because they don't know what they need. But if you know that your stuff that you're using to vet takes so much CPU, RAM, and disk space, then you'll know you need at least double that to have a working machine in the manner that you're wanting. So let's say, for example, like right now, what we have up and running, it's using 4 threads of my CPU. It's taking about 10, it's not even quite 10 gigabytes of RAM, but like 5 gigabytes of RAM. I'm at 20 gigabytes of disk space. And then I'm also going to be needing an extra monitor, most likely, right? Or actually, in this case, I can even use a phone as a monitor. And then so when I go buy a new computer or laptop, I'm going to take that data, double it, and say, okay, that's what I need as a minimum, and then find something to suit my needs. Because like knowing is half the battle, right? So if you just gear up for this one, because it always helps to be, helps to fight for your privacy now than later after you've lost it. It's just easier to start being private, more private, and keeping that than it is to have to fight for your actual privacy in a later date, because there isn't always a later date to some of the stuff, like you never know what's going to happen in the future. Be prepared now. And I really think this is the battle worth fighting. I think that is pretty much it. That's the vetting process. That's the secret sauce to keeping a little bit more of your privacy in your daily life. I hope you guys really enjoyed it today. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do next, but I want to do something that still has something to do with your either vetting or privacy processing, but I want to go on to the next step of whatever that might be. So I hope to see you guys next time for a fun episode of me trying to change your perspective on something. Again, this week and last week, it was all about privacy. So let's see what we can change next time.